thank you all for coming. I appreciate taking the time out of your lives to come listen to me chat about things. My name is Dahl, and I'm an entertainment lawyer throughout the country. I've got clients all across Canada, and I do everything from music industry stuff to film industry to authors writing and that sort of thing. But my focus is on music industry stuff. I'm also a musician. I play drums in a band called One Bad Son. We got after 13 years of working our asses off, we got our first #1 song 2 weeks ago. So we were but yeah, and I also, music's my passion. So it's what I do. It's what I love, and I'm lucky to call music and music law as careers. So why don't we start by I'd like to get everyone's name and maybe what instrument you play, and because we're talking about band agreements, tell me your favorite band of all time. just pick one. It doesn't have to be a difficult thing. Let's start with it.
My name is Captain Bergen, and I'm actually Dahl's assistant and wife. And I can't tell you I have a favorite band.
Sure.
Yeah, my C&I person, so. So I'm Kyle Rubin, singer. I've done a lot of opera musical theater in the past. I want to do much recording. Just want to make sure that I got the legal aspects covered. Favorite band, probably Genesis.
Nice. Okay. Like the early Genesis or the sort of second wave?
Oh, I'm not fussy. Either will do.
Gabriel or Dahl.
Absolutely.
That's cool. I like that. Great band.
Yeah.
My name's Joe, from the States originally. I moved up here 3 years ago. Favorite, I play guitar, singer-songwriter. Favorite band, I'm from Seattle, so any 90s Seattle band, there's Cornell, Soundgarden, Fighters,
That's that's my stuff too. Like Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Soundgarden, AIC. That's what changed my life. So,
yeah, right.
I like it. Where in the States are you from?
From Seattle.
That's your okay. Yeah. What's your recent?
Just before your September, yeah.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
Kyle, playing a band called Farmer for the last 2 years. So I guess I'm here to learn more about the favorite band, Rush, probably.
Nice. Okay.
No.
Well, and he's got a Lebowski shirt on, so he's immediately cool by me.
Definitely not the Eagles.
Favorite? Yeah. Nice. Yeah, CCR maybe.
I'm Kevin. Play bass, busy band guy, and Kiss is my favorite.
Nice.
I'm Rhonda. I'm here to support. And I love the 80s heritage levels.
Nice. Okay.
I'm Evan. I currently play in a called Reed. We're a doom metal band, so I guess my favorite band would have to be My Dying Bride.
Right. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Thank you.
I'm Carolyn. I'm a sister. I'm just here to support. And my favorite band would be
Nice. Thank you.
I'm Parker. I play bass in a band called The Outskirts, and my favorite band is probably The Band.
Nice. I named my son Levon, so
Nice.
fellow band.
Matt, I play acoustic instrumental guitar. Favorite band? I won't say favorite, I'll say most influential probably would be Carlos Santana.
Nice. Thank you, man.
Hi, I'm Regina from SaskMusic. I'm not going to name my favorite band. It's too difficult. Kate Bush.
Nice. Okay. I know that.
Okay. And then how about Matthew, guys?
My name is Mike. I just work here.
Well, Mike, who's your favorite band? Like,
Maybe the Zombies.
Nice. Odyssey and Oracle.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
That's me down next round.
Yeah, it can be a moving target. That's cool. Megan, how you doing?
Well, thank you.
My name is Megan, and I sing and play guitar and say singer-songwriter, and one of my favorite people cakes.
Nice. She's great.
Hi, I'm JT. I just started working here for the summer. I sing and play piano, singer-songwriter, and one of my favorite bands is I love it.
Yeah, it's the greatest singer ever.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah, so good.
I'm Brittany. I also work here.
Nice. I love
I'm
it.
as fresh as one season.
I would say, I mean, I'm Kurt, I'm a drummer. Favorite band's always, Moving Target. Last night I said The Who, because I'm just kind of like, they just sort of got me into real rock and roll. Keith's my favorite drummer. But tonight I'll say Pearl Jam, because Mike and I both have an affinity for Pearl Jam. That's kind of what got me when I was 11 years old, that early 90s Seattle thing happened, right? And that just like changed my life. And then without Pearl Jam, I wouldn't have got into The Who, Zeppelin, Hendrix, all that stuff. So we'll say Pearl Jam tonight. Thank you all for coming. So basically, we're here to talk about band agreements, and people always ask me, what's the most important contract musicians can sign? And commonly known contracts are like, record deals, management deals, even publishing deals can be like the big, glamorous sort of contracts. But what I often say is by far the most important contract you can sign if you're in a band is a band agreement. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which we'll sort of discuss today. It's on, like, basically, the band agreement sort of outlines your rights as a partner with the other partners in your band. So in the business world, we call it a partnership agreement. And if you're incorporated, we call it like a shareholder agreement. But because you're in a band, we call it a band agreement. It outlines the rights and responsibilities that you have as a band member. And as we'll see today, there's a lot of really important rights and responsibilities. So I've got like a little PowerPoint thing here. It's just meant to be sort of guidance for us as we go. I've already kind of been over a little bit about me. You guys know some of the stuff already. That's me on the right with Def Leppard drummers. So someone said they liked 80s hair metal. That was, we did a little tour of stadiums with them, which is pretty cool. I do a lot of writing on my website. I write a lot of articles on the music biz and sort of articles on topics that I think musicians can find useful. And sometimes those articles get published around the country or around the world. And sometimes they get picked up by, in the bottom floor there, I got interviewed by Turkish national news.
Fantastic.
Just randomly about the whole Led Zeppelin plagiarism trial, which was more interesting. We could spend an hour talking about what is plagiarism and what is songwriting. And then that's my bandmates and I in Saskatchewan, and that's one of my clients, July Talk, which is the first gold record I got. So let's go into band agreements. What are they? And why should we care? So has anyone here ever signed an agreement between themselves and their bandmates? No. Has anyone signed like a co-writing agreement, like between you and other co-writers? No. Megan, you have
No time ago, I forgot.
co-writing agreement? Yeah, so like what I do, like, so anytime you co-write songs with someone, it's good to put something down and write, and it just sort of even just says the songwriting splits, right? Like what percentages each person gets as writer. But there's other rights too, talk about like who has the signing authority to deal with the compositions and that sort of thing. I sort of include all that in a band agreement. If you're in a band writing songs together, there's a bunch of rights at play. So why don't we talk about some real world examples to start with, just to kind of give an idea of why band agreements are important. Let's start with Pink Floyd, because they're one of my favorite bands. So for a time, like in the 70s, Pink Floid was one of the biggest bands in the world. And then as happens sometimes, a couple members started to hate each other. So in the 80s, what happened was two different versions of Pink Floyd were touring the world using the name Pink Floyd, which of course creates a lot of confusion for fans and for promoters and, everyone else involved. And the reason they could do that is because there was no band agreement in place. No one had ever signed something saying who can use the band name in the event of disputes. So what we had was David Gilmour and the other two in the rhythm section touring as Pink Floyd, and then also Roger Waters touring as Pink Floyd. So long story short, they ended up spending millions of dollars on lawsuits. I think it went for like 6 years, and then the judge finally decided that the David Gilmour incarnation could use the name Pink Floyd, Roger Waters couldn't. So had they had a simple band agreement in place that outlined who could use the band agreement in the event of dispute, that could have been all that hassle could have been avoided. Another example is Guns N' Roses, which is a bit different because the infamous Axl Rose sort of forced his band members to sign off on a contract that gave up their rights in the band name, which is why he was touring and still does tour as Guns N' Roses, and the remaining members, well, for a while they were Velvet Revolver, but there was more of them than there was him in terms of original members, but because they'd signed away their rights, they could not use the name Guns N' Roses. So what is a band agreement? Essentially, it's a fairly straightforward contract that you sign with your bandmates, whether there's two of you like Tegan and Sarah, or there's three of you like Jimi Hendrix. And it's a contract that outlines who can do what, how decisions are made, who owns what, and so the rights and responsibilities of each partner. Now, I underlined the word partners there in the first bullet because that's a sort of preliminary question: is who should be a partner in your band? Like sometimes you'll have, in the Tegan and Sarah example, the two of them are sort of the band, and they hire like a rhythm section to be to go on tour, etc. Maybe write songs with them. I don't think that's usually the case, but essentially they're musicians for hire. And so that's sort of just an initial preliminary sort of discussion point: is who is a partner in the band? Who is the band? You have your sort of, like the Red Hot Chili Peppers or Pearl Jam or the Who or Led Zeppelin, was like that's a sort of classic band. Everyone's a partner, everyone's a band member. But there's also situations where it's like I said, the Tegan and Sarah scenario, where it's sort of two people, and then they hire people, session players to be like, I guess, work for hire. That's what they call it in the legal world. So, just an initial discussion point that not every person who plays music necessarily with you is considered a partner and a band member. Does that make sense? Is there any questions so far? Am I boring you with law talk? Yeah? Yes?
Is there a handover of this we're done, or do you
what I'll do is I'll get all of your email addresses and I can send you this.
Oh, good, okay.
And I'll actually send you some other links and stuff for more information. Okay. So like when we talk about the rights and responsibilities in the band agreement, what are we talking about then, and why are they important? So one of the most common things that, like I would guess that of the, let's say of all the disputes that come across my desk as a lawyer involving bands, I would guess that like 80% of them could be avoided if there was a band agreement in place. And so what kind of things are being disputed and what could be avoided with the band agreement? So, first off, one of the things is, how do you divide revenue you make as a band? Whether that be touring revenue or merchandise, or let's say you get a big film placement and you get a check for 20 grand. How is that divided up amongst the band members? And again, if you've got like a Tegan and Sarah sort of setup, I don't think that the sort of musicians for hire get a cut of that $20,000 film placement check. You know, but again, that'd be articulated in the band agreement. A lot of bands, when you tour, you know, sort of the standard practice is splitting revenue equally from touring, but that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes you've got a situation where it's, you know, sort of like the one-person fronted band, a la Bruce Springsteen or Neil Young. I'm sure he's not splitting touring revenue equally with everyone. I'm sure he's got sort of hired guns, and he takes a lot more up, you know, off the top. But that's, again, something that needs to be articulated. Otherwise, there's no sort of legally binding way to divide revenue as a band unless you've got something in writing. The band name. So, as we talked about with Pink Floyd and Guns N' Roses, band names can be a very valuable thing. And, you know, sure, Pink Floyd and Guns N' Roses, those are like the extreme examples, because they're the biggest bands in the world. But, you know, even for a starting out band or a mid-level band, you know, there's a lot of value in your band name. That really is your brand, right? And if you talk about, you know, what can you charge for a concert ticket for Guns N' Roses on a ticket versus Axl and Friends, there's a huge difference there, right? Similarly with T-shirts and I mean, everything related to the band is really tied to the band name. So what I often do is in agreements, like in a band agreement, let's say you've got like your standard band where everyone's equal owners, like Red Hot Chili Peppers, let's say. You want to be sure that if someone leaves, if someone quits the band or is fired or just says, just gives up and says, I'm not doing this anymore. You don't, like, without something in writing in a band agreement, that person who is fired or quits could actually stop you from using the band name going forward, which is pretty crazy to think about because you put all this time and effort into creating a brand, and all of a sudden, he's even in the band for like 6 months, say you've been together for 13 years, like my band. Someone who's in the band for 6 months could then, in theory, stop you from using that band name going forward. A client of mine, for example, is a household name in Canada, a big Canadian rock band that you all know. Their drummer was sort of let go for multiple reasons, but there wasn't a band agreement in place. So this guy, you know, essentially he was fired because he, you know, some substance abuse issues and that sort of thing. And he hadn't even been in the band like the full length of the band together. But because there's no agreement in place, he had the ability to stop the band from using the band name going forward. And this put the whole team, the management, record label, all the promoters hugely on edge. And that's an understatement because they couldn't release a record with that band name on the CD. They couldn't promote, like promoters could not advertise this band name because this drummer, you know, threatened to sue if he did. So there's a process of negotiations and back and forth and a lot of headache and legal fees and all this stuff because they just hadn't put together like a simple 8-page band agreement at the outset. So I guess what the law says is without something in writing, all members of the band are equal owners of everything. And that means that one owner can stop the others from using the band name, the recordings, the compositions, etc., unless you've got something in writing that dictates otherwise. So, band names like hugely important, and who controls that band name. So what you might do is, we'll kind of get to this a bit in decision making. The next point is you might want to have a stipulation that if someone leaves the band, they give up all rights in the band. Simple as that. Right? If they're fired or quit, it doesn't matter. If they're gone, if they're out of the band, they don't have any more rights to the band name. Or you might have, you know, again, like let's say in the Soundgarden example, you know, maybe it's like Cornell and Matt Cameron are the ones that have control over that, you know, to be the longest or whatever. I mean, there really is, you can draft it any you like, but it's just key points, you gotta draft it, you know. Otherwise, like I said, a temporary member of the band could stop you from using the name going forward. What else is covered in a band agreement? Decision making. So, you know, you want to decide, so there's 4 of you in a band, you want to, you know, invest in a $10,000 touring band. Who decides you can spend that money? Or you want to invest in a PA system, or you want to invest in insurance for your gear. It's like $1,000. Like who's allowed to make these decisions without something in writing? I guess anyone could. But so what I do is in an agreement, I put, you know, certain decisions could be majority. So say it's a 4-person group, you need a 3/4 majority to make major decisions. But maybe you want it to be a unanimous decision if it's over decisions over $5,000 or something like that. You know, we can sort of have tiers if you like. But the thing is, you don't want a situation like, especially when you're at a certain level, every band member's got their own debit card, which gives them access to the band bank account. And let's say you got 20 grand in there, you don't want someone to just be able to take all the money out and leave town. And again, my job as lawyers is to always prepare, like, to make sure the worst doesn't happen, you know, because I've seen the worst happen. And people always call me when the worst happens, right? You always want to assume the best of your bandmates, but just be prepared in case something happens, right? And again, without something in writing, the law will just give everyone equal decision making. So again, the band member you hired a month ago could, in theory, make a decision that, in fact, you know, takes out all the money out of the bank account or something like that. Any questions so far? I'll just keep throwing out information at you that someone else mentioned. Yes.
Is this all on the assumption that the band name has been officially registered, that the company name would be?
Yeah. So when you create a band agreement, it's essentially the same as a partnership agreement. So that creates certain rights in the band name in addition to registering the name. So let's say you register with ISC, you know, registered as a partnership. That gives you certain rights in the band name, but it may not articulate who in the band has those rights, like owns those rights. It's similar with a trademark. I mean, a trademark gives you certain rights in a certain territory. Let's say you get a Canadian trademark, but that doesn't apply at all in the US, for example. So the band agreement just adds another layer of legal protection to registration of a band name. But yeah, if you just register, you know, if you register hard-pressed T-shirts at ISC, that gives whoever registers that name rights in the band or in that business name. But that's entirely different than whatever partnership agreement they have as a business that states who can do what with that name. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? It's like with band names and sort of brand ownership, it's all about like adding layers of protection. You know? So it's like registering it with IFC, having a band agreement, and then I guess the more high-end protection would be like a trademark, which costs a bit more money, takes a bit more time, but just adds more legal protection. So one of the most important rights that is outlined in the band agreement is songwriting. And songwriting, like of the 80% of disputes that can be avoided with a band agreement, like songwriting takes up like 3/4 of those. Because songwriting, like in the pre-Napster world, there's 2 copyrights in every song. There's one in the recording and one in the songwriting. And in the pre-Napster world, the recording copyright was really valuable because people bought a lot of records. So whoever owned the recording, there was a lot of revenue stream there. That's typically record labels. These days, people aren't buying music nearly as much. That's an understatement. But they're using music more than ever, whether that be on Spotify or film, TV, video games, record stores, malls, restaurants, sporting games, and music is used more than ever. And that use generates revenue for whoever wrote the songs. So that's a songwriting copyright. So owning your songwriting and having clarification in terms of who can do what with the songs is very important. It's never been more important. So in the band agreement, that's a major section of it is songwriting. So first we can lay out songwriting splits for each song between the bandmates, and if there's any outside writers, we include that. But then who can administer those compositions? So you've written like 10 songs with your bandmates, and you want to give one or two of the bandmates, or maybe just one, signing authority to sort of be able to sign off on the use of those songs. And the reason you do that is it makes things a lot easier when it comes to like film and TV placements. So all the music supervisors in Hollywood want to know that they can contact one person, ideally, maybe two, if they want to use a song like right now. They don't want to track down 4 band members in 4 different provinces to get signatures. It's not as appealing. I mean, of course, you can go that route. It's, in my experience, it just opens more doors. It's one person or maybe two that can sign off on the use of the songs. So something you want to think about is, who should have the signing authority on the compositions, and possibly like, do you want the band to administer all the money coming from compositions, like from SOCAN, or just go to the individual members, individual writers? Or maybe you do the writer's share goes to each of the individual writers, and then the other half of the publishing pie, the publisher's share, goes to the band, and then that revenue is put towards band expenses. Does that make sense? Songwriting and publishing is honestly probably the most complex part of the music biz from my experience. So if you have questions, throw them at me.
What's the best resource to understand the real breakdown of publishing and copyright world in how they get?
My website.
Awesome.
So I'm joking, but I'm kind of serious about it. I'll say, like, I've done a bunch of articles under the resources tab of my website. And so what I'll do is, like, after this presentation, tomorrow I'll send everyone here just like a couple articles that just break down publishing and songwriting. Another big one is like, what constitutes songwriting? As a drummer, it's like usually drummers are kind of get the short end of the stick when it comes to songwriting. It usually goes to singers and guitar players. So that's all the discussion which we won't get into tonight. But what constitutes songwriting? And it's when you work with a producer, if the producer suggests that you should make that bridge better, is that songwriting? Should you do producer songwriting? I would say no. But if that producer then pulls out an acoustic and starts writing the bridge for you, then that does constitute songwriting. So yeah, it's like that's kind of the $1 million question in biz right now is what actually constitutes songwriting, and then from there it's like, okay, well, what are all the revenue streams flowing from this? And right now, with all the streaming services and just all the different uses of music, like there's a lot of revenue streams, but they're smaller than the old days, which is just record sales and lots of money. It's like they're more spread out, but if you understand all of them, you can make the most of them. I think there can be like significant revenue from songwriting, sure. So related to that, we're talking about the 2 copyrights in a song. The other one is the master recording. So a lot of times you might give those rights in your masters to a record label. You sign a record deal, but maybe you don't. Maybe you create your own label, or maybe you just release it yourself, or whatever. So, but the band agreement addresses that as well. Who owns the recordings? You record 10 songs with bandmates, and you release a record, and then one person quits a year later. Do they have any rights in those recordings? Can they stop you if there's been a conflict happening? Can they stop you from continuing to have that record on iTunes or whatever? The answer is yes. If there's not a band agreement in place, like arguably they would say, I haven't given up my rights in the recording, so therefore I can make you take down the record off iTunes, which is kind of a crazy thought. You put your heart and soul in this record, and then someone quits because they can't hack it, and then they're going to stop you from selling it on iTunes or putting it on YouTube or whatever. But that would be their right, because their performance on the record, whether it be whatever instrument, oboe, it's their intellectual property, that performance. So what we do then is, in the band agreement, we have a clause that states, like, you know, if you're entitled to X amount percentage of profits from sale of the record, but if you leave the band, you give up all your rights in the recording, except for the right to keep being paid your pro rata share of, you know, proceeds. But they could not stop you from, you know, selling it on iTunes or whatever, right? So it's just, and it sounds far-fetched, but it happens all the time. This is, you know, that's when I get the urgent phone calls.
So even a session player, so if you have a phone band structure per se, with a session player or a accompanist or something in that context, you still place to protect yourself.
That's a great question. So that's a bit different of agreement. Like that's, I just call it a session player agreement.
Right.
Very simple, like one-page agreement. But you're 100% right. They've got intellectual property in their performance on the record. So, you know, it's actually, there was with the whole Carly Rae Jepsen big hit, you know, Call Me Maybe. There's, I believe it was the guitar player came out of the woodwork after the fact, after it had made, you know, $80 million or something. Which that's when people come out of the woodwork, you know, like they don't care.
Don't understand.
And it's making $80. Yeah, it's 80 mil. Yeah. It's like, hey. And he, I think it was the guitar player, but anyways, he claimed that his part on that song, I don't think there even is guitar on the song, but, yeah, but whoever it was, basically said like I'm a 25% owner of the composition. So not the record, but similar idea, right? The composition is actually worth more again in today's marketplace. Like that song was just used for a year there. Like I couldn't get away from it. I tried, you know. Yeah. So there was, you know, I don't know what happened. It was somewhat out of court, but he was just a session guy. It wasn't like he was part of the band or anything. But so because that's the thing, and arguably, you know, like if you talk about you pay someone just to play the chords that you already wrote, how could they have any claim? But I mean, if you think about a song like, say, Satisfaction, Rolling Stones, you know, like, let's pretend that Nick wrote that song, acoustic and pedal vocals and everything. He's like, you know, Keith played the riff and then lays down that riff, which, like, to me, makes the song, right? Like, so arguably, Keith would say, well, without this riff, there is no, like, massive rock that will change it. Yeah, you know, so there's always, like, that sort of unknown when it comes to you get in the studio, hit record, who knows what people are going to play, so they could always claim that they've got certain songwriting rights or the various rights to their performance on the master. So, but yeah, great question. Like, basically, a simple one-page thing. If you're having someone who's not your bandmate play on a track on the record, just get a session player agreement. It says, basically, they will say, or you want them to say in the agreement, I do not take any songwriting, unless, of course, they do. It's a co-writing situation. But yeah, no songwriting and no ownership of the masters, and I'll pay you, you know, X amount of dollars to perform on my song. Right.
So what if you're starting a song? So you're starting to sheet music, you got to compose it.
Right.
Or you're reworking it, or you're just changing the key, and then you to the composer or a songwriting agreement about the point trigger.
That's an interesting question, which, you know, off the top of my head, it's not my realm of expertise, but, you know, I would guess that it'd be analogous to, you know, the not sheet music world of, like, if they are playing sheet music, they wouldn't have any right to solve that.
Right. But if you change the key or you rearrange somehow.
I think a rearrangement would, like, yeah. I don't think changing key would, like, that's just my gut.
Yeah.
To me, that's not songwriting, right? Like, you're just up in it, you know. Rearrangement, like that's, if it's a traditional song, like you often see traditional arrangement by the current artist. Yeah. So I'm not sure how that works in terms of like how it's registered. And so I think it would still be 100% owned by the tradition, like whoever owns that original song. But, you know, honestly, in terms of sheet music, that's not like, I haven't dealt with a lot of cases in that area, but
Right.
I'd be happy to get into it.
Sure.
Kind of treat that, yeah. My guess is there wouldn't be any rights accruing to that performer, but I think it'd be safe just to have a session player agreement, like, you have one pager, you use it for everyone that's performing on the song, and just, it makes clear that they're not getting the songwriting, which is probably okay anyways under the eyes of the law, but secondly, the recording's gonna be owned by you, they're not gonna have any ownership of that recording.
Right.
Just to be safe.
Yeah.
And again, these things, like, it may seem like overthinking it, but I've really, you know, my experience has been a little prudence goes a long way. Yeah.
No, it's amazing when people split hairs behind this. Usually it's songs. Learn the hard way, but it's nature of people.
Yeah, well, in the tech world, they actually make a lot of money.
Right.
In this world, you know?
So I'm not sure where the demarcation points are. So that's why I asked.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And so I always admit if I don't know 100% the answer. So I'm happy to look into it further. Sure. Yeah, so another second last point there, which you've kind of addressed a bit, is so you're in a band, who can hire, who can fire members? And this, again, this comes up often. People, you know, the lineup of bands often changes. Sometimes if you're, especially when things start to really take off, things could happen, you know. So what you can have is a clause saying that maybe takes a majority, like again, it's a 4-person band, as an example, 3 out of 4 have to agree if they're gonna fire someone. Obviously, you wouldn't have to be 4 out of 4 because they never would fire someone. You know, unless they voted against themselves. Yeah. Well, and then so on the hiring side, it gets interesting. Is let's say, well, let's use my band example. 13 years as a band. What if we, you know, say if our bass player left and a new person came into the band, like, would they have the same rights as all the rest of us? Like, would they have the right to own the band name? Well, no, I would say. But like, would they have any ownership of the previous recordings? Again, I would probably say no. Whoever left would still get a percentage of whatever they played on. But yeah, would they make decisions for the band? Again, it'd be probably like maybe after a couple of years, you'd be able to have like that voting, you know, decision-making authority. But either way, like, it's up to you as a band. But the point is, without something right, it just kind of gets murky. You know, so someone just joined the band can also have the same rights as you, who's been with it for 10 years. It may not be the most intelligent business decision. You know what I mean? But yeah, and then final point here, signing authority. So we talked about it a bit in terms of relation to the compositions, but also in terms of like who can sign contracts, who can sign checks. And again, to use the example of, you know, you got a bit of money, you finally have a bit of money in your band bank account, and then someone could in theory just write a check, which has happened. And once it happens, you can't do much about it. So just
is a band agreement analogous? Is it the same as a corporate or a corporation?
Yeah. So band agreement is like if you're playing in a band, even if you don't register with ISC as a partnership, the law will still view you as what's called a common law partnership, right? Because you're more than one person working together with a view to profit. Right. That's what the law says. You know, whether or not you profit, it might take a few years as a band. You know, which I can attest to. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then, so this partnership, the sole proprietorship, if you're just solo, and, right? You can always remain that way as a musician if you're always hiring people. Like, it wouldn't become a partnership unless you kind of had a band situation. Right. So, sole proprietorship, partnership, which is the same as a band agreement, and then when you incorporate, that's when you get a shareholders agreement. Right. Which is, yeah. So, I mean, and every band incorporates at some point when they get to a certain level. You know, it's a question of when rather than if. Because there's a lot of benefits, you know, tax benefits, all that stuff. Limited liability. Like if someone gets injured at your concert, like you can't get sued for your personal assets if you're incorporated, just a corporation asset. So, you know, all the big bands out there are incorporated, even not big bands. Like, we incorporated a while ago, and it's just, it's just a bit easier in terms of taxes and that sort of thing. Because otherwise, as a partnership, all the money you make as a band you have to claim as individuals, right? So it just like, say you have a day job, which most of us do, it's like it also bumps you to the next tax bracket, right? And you're paying just a lot more taxes, so you get enough tax money to the government. So
would articles of incorporation, would the articles of incorporation supersede the
yeah. So what would happen, like, so you got a band agreement, so therefore your partnership by law. I mean, at some point, when you sort of ramp up, incorporate at some point. Incorporations cost like $1,000. That's kind of a standard law firm charge. So when you do that, you basically take all the agreements you sort of made in the band agreement, we sort of bring that into the incorporation, the articles of incorporation.
So you define your shareholder or your stockholders.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a discussion that would have to happen at that point.
Right.
Just because you're equal partners, maybe you want to switch the shareholding to become a corporation, right? Like maybe someone's invested more money or whatever. So yeah, there's a discussion. It's not like a de facto, like we just switch it immediately from partnership to corporation. There's a certain discussion that has to be had for sure.
For the songwriting rights and all those other things would be factors in that discussion, I'm sure.
Right, 100%. You'll have like your corporation will act as sort of publishing arm to collect the publisher share of revenue and the writer share, rest of the individuals. Yeah, it can seem complex, but once you get into it, it's not that complex. It's just the end goal is like, paying less in taxes, but also having like that protection of the corporation, so you can not have to worry about your house being taken away.
Yeah. Somebody,
right, or the drummer pokes someone's eye off your stick to a crowd. But that reminds me to get another point that to consider is when you've got a band and you sign a band agreement, one thing we always deal with is like, has there been any outside investment in the band? Whether that be from an outsider, a complete outsider, or someone in the band. Like maybe one of you has invested $10,000 or his or her own money, and it's like, you want that to be repaid first before each partner starts taking profits. You know what I mean? Or maybe you want half of the money that you earn as a band to be paid back to whoever the lender is, and the other half can still eke out a living with. But you want something in there saying that we're to pay back this loan in some way before we just start paying out each other. You know what I mean? And similarly with, like I said, an outside investor, sometimes like family members invest money and they'll want to know that they're going to be paid back something from band revenues, at some point, right? Okay, that's enough of looking at Kings of Leon. Let's go to something else here. So yeah, we've got some real world examples here. I mean, we've kind of discussed these two a bit. I wanted to put a picture of Axel getting arrested. It felt like karmic justice. I like Axel, but not as a person. So the Doors was a good example. Like after the great Jim Morrison died, the other three guys wanted to keep starting a band and tour as the Doors, which is kind of crazy to me. Like there is no Doors without Jim Morrison, but the guy on the right, John Densmore, the drummer, didn't want that to happen. He thought it was just ruining legacy, But there wasn't anything in writing, like there was no band agreement. So the other two guys started touring as the Doors, which again is pretty crazy. But so Densmore filed a lawsuit, and I believe he won, but it was probably years in court and a lot on legal fees and that sort of thing. I think they were able to tour as the Doors Revisited or something like that, or the Other Doors, or Revolving Doors. But again, just it seems like how could they tour as the Doors? But when there's that much money being thrown at you, people do silly things. So, and the Beach Boys, same thing. I mean, Brian Wilson, the genius on the left, he gave up touring because he had a lot of anxiety and that sort of thing. And maybe bipolar. The rest of the guys want to keep touring using Beach Boys' name. And basically, I think it was Mike Love, the second guy from the left, who wanted to tour as the Beach Boys, and the other guys had their own bands. It's kind of like a Pink Floyd thing, where there's two different entities that wanted to tour as the Beach Boys because they realized they could charge so much if they want to see it, get close to that glory, So again, just like years in court and just a lot of headache because they didn't have something in writing. So that's kind of it, like in terms of the overall like discussion from my end. But I don't know what questions anyone has. Like what, there's a lot of things thrown at you. So there's a lot of ideas about band agreements floating around. So yes.
So do you find from band to band, is it all fairly similar, or are they vastly different from band to band?
It's a great question. And we talked about this a lot last night at Saskatchewan. I did the same thing. Every band is so different, and that's like, and I mean that, like, so, we talk about maybe like having me send out like a template band agreement to everyone, but I just didn't want to because every band is so different. And plus, I can also get in trouble if someone takes the template and like uses it and ends up getting sued, whatever. But every band is so different. Every band agreement should be so different. I believe that wholeheartedly based on the last decade of doing this. So like, again, to use like sort of the spectrum, it's like there's like the Chili Peppers where everyone divides songwriting equally and have all equal rights, I assume. I'm not the lawyer, but not yet. But on the other end spectrum is like sort of one person set running the boat, Springsteen and Neil Young or that sort of vibe, right? In the middle is like the Stones, where it's like I'm sure Mick and Keith have more rights than the other guys. And I've heard they've even like Ron Wood has been in the band since the 70s. He's still like a hired guy, and he gets paid X amount of dollars per show.
Yeah, I've heard that too, that Daryl Jones has been in the band longer than the original bass player. He's still a hired guy too.
Yeah, which is, but it comes with different advantages and disadvantages, right? They don't have to worry about all the politics. They get paid, they know what they get paid every show.
Yeah.
They can just piss off after that, right? They don't have to worry about all the other stuff. So that's kind of in the middle, I guess. But honestly, there's so many different ways to draft it. So that's why I always, every time I meet with a band, it's like, tell me what is the band about? What's your story? What's the dynamic between the members?
Half of my question there was, how often do you see it change? Like, does it change?
Like with one band,
you change it to change your year? Is that a standard thing that every year you get together? And
gotcha. No, once it's drafted, like you keep it as is, unless something. So I always add like a schedule where you can just add songs as they get written. So that's you don't have to like come back to order every year. Like just add the songs and the splits and just kind of initials. Yeah. But yeah, if someone new comes to the band, when for Rush, like what was the original drummer's name again? Good answer. Yeah, there was for one album, right? Yeah, maybe 2 albums, and then no one cares. Rush is sort of like this iconic band, three rows. They started off without Neil. So when those big changes happen, you want to make at least call whoever drafted the band agreement and say like, how can we adjust this, right? But it might be built into the agreement that the person that left just you have someone new come on, and probably would be they want when Neil comes to the band like you adjust the agreement. But for most of the clients I have, there's not much change. Yeah, unless members change, So some bands, for example, like a 4-piece band client of mine, like the singer's sort of like, sort of the guiding force. It's kind of his baby. So he has 40% kind of control of ownership of the songs, but also sort of voting control, and the other 3 have 20 each. So that's, it's kind of like, you can always look at it like in the pie sort of analogy, right? So in theory, 3 of them can outvote him, right? They all vote a certain day. But I think that's something there that he's like the managing partner, so you can't be outvoted. Or you have, in a duo, like say Simon and Garfunkel, like those are interesting band situations because there's no way to really structure to avoid conflicts instead of 50 versus 50, right? Unless one person's willing to say like, yeah, you've got to decide to go, then it's not really an equal partnership. It's like one person's in charge, you know. But, so that's the one situation where you can't really, it's very difficult to avoid conflict if it comes up. It sort of just becomes that, right? As happened with Santa Clara. Although Garland was sort of like the who even cares sort of guy. Yes. I lost you at Garfunkel.
How much of what we do is litigation versus litigation?
Great question. I don't do any litigation. Like I don't go to court, you know, and because those that going to court's like a whole other beast, right? Like those that do it, that's all they do. There's so many different rules, like and procedures that either you do that and that's your job as a lawyer, or you do what I do, which is more like the negotiation, contracts, etc. You know, but, you know, I could go to court, but I don't know how I'll do it. And I'm just making an ass like Kramer in Seinfeld with those two parts. Calls the judge, Your Highness, Your Honor, you know. But we have we've got a couple of litigators at our firm, so if that's needed, we have that option. But I find and you know, you still get in these negotiations / disputes with other lawyers on the other side of the file. One of them was, like I said, with that band that's household name, it was both sides threatened to sue. You know, there's no doubt that this could have gone that way, but if it did, that's when I handed off to the two people at my firm to do that. But yeah, it's not. I wasn't going to step foot in court, but I would sort of do everything up to that point. You know what I mean? But in the music biz, unless there's going to court is really expensive. It's you know, $25,000 in legal fees, goes like that. You know, so most artists don't want to go there, right? I mean, it's same with anything. If you're going to court, it's expensive, so you want to do your best to not do it. But if you're talking about millions of dollars, then people don't think twice about spending $50,000, you know. So for me, it's a lot of, and I always feel like I'm just by nature, I'm more of a deal maker than a deal breaker, right? So if there's some sort of dispute, I'm good at mediating, you know, because I want to have a satisfied client. I don't want to just rack a bunch of legal fees and then be like, well, I'll go to court, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's a lot of, and despite, you know, all the examples I gave today, despite all those, it's not as much conflict as what we think. It's a lot of just, the good thing about a band agreement is when you do it right, it avoids all the conflict, right? To me, it's not so much a negative thing as a really positive, it opens doors, you know, provides clarity to the relationship amongst band members. Yeah, mutual expectations, right? Within a relationship, it's you've got the same expectations, you know, a lot better chance of succeeding, you know. So, and I think that even just getting the discussion rolling about, okay, how should we divide songwriting? A lot of bands don't talk about that. And I've been there in the room where all of a sudden it gets brought up. It's well, you know, one guy thinks everything's going to be divided equally, and the other guy's I think I should be 80% songwriter. And it's you know, those are awkward moments, you know. And I'm not a therapist, but it's
How come tribute bands don't get sued? Or do they?
Well, one did. I was contacted by one. It was a Journey tribute band. They got, they weren't getting sued, but every time they put a video on YouTube, it was taken down immediately, right? Because Journey wanted all the views to go to them, or the people did. But you can perform any cover live, right? Cover bands.
But I mean, if you're dressing it and you know, if I open a McDonald's tribute restaurant, I mean, that's
that would be a great business idea.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you could put a talent tribute at a video show with the lights, and it's just as big. would that not, I'm just curious, I'm not gonna do this, but would that not take away from their revenue?
No, it's a good question. There is a line somewhere in terms of what you can and can't do. Like if you had video of Metallica, I think you'd get in trouble, right? Like, because then you'd be like representing who you are, them, or like there is certain lines. You know, I'm not sure how it works with CDs. Like you're selling CDs that, you know, certain appropriates their logo.
Yeah, I was just curious. I always wondered, some of the tribute bands are so good that you think, geez, they must have crossed the line.
Yeah. Well, there's like the ABBA tribute band. Like ABBA is all, you know, old. So like, the younger ABBA tributes are like arguably better. I love ABBA.
I went with the old is what I'm laughing at. Thank you very much.
I'll be old someday. But yeah, like it's a good question. Where is that line? Like I know that for YouTube, the videos kept getting pulled. So it's I think that, I mean, the law allows for interpretation, just like Weird Al can do, you know, parodies and not get sued. But if he does too much of a parody that's actually like bordering on like, you know, actually that ruining the reputation of someone, that someone could actually stop him, right?
In a few years, I mean, you know, Aerosmith, all these bands are going to be gone in 10 years. They're all gone. The money's going to be in tribute bands. There's going to be some tributes.
Well, I mean, I hope that a new wave of great bands will come along, and you know, but I say that because I try. In the last decade, how many rock bands have come along that can fill stadiums? You know, I mean, it seems to be just all the old guys can do it, but like no new bands can, which is kind of disheartening for people. Yeah, right. Like at some point, Steven Tyler's just going to hire someone to look like him.
Well, just the first band that does it, probably.
Yeah.
I can't see them letting that go.
Yeah, it's actually real. A buddy of mine had this idea, like based on this, saying that like contact Kiss and have them pick who these guys are, and then like have some sort of arrangement that where they get paid X amount. Like,
well, yeah, Quiet Riot doesn't have any original members, which is weird.
But the touring has that.
The touring is Quiet Riot. Yeah,
someone must have given them the right to use that.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of a band. To me, that's the first band I've ever heard that doesn't have any original.
Yeah, well, yeah. What ties it to Quiet Riot, really, except the songs? But that's just it's a cover band. Yeah.
It could be recirculating for like the next 100 years with different members and still be Quiet Riot.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's especially like you said these days, like with all the legends, like you know, the golden era of rock, and all those legends are starting to go, right?
Yeah. So, go ahead. I just it's kind of outside of the theme here, but that just reminded me of, like, let's say somebody does a cover on YouTube, still under their own band name, but it blows up and gets more views than the original, but it's listed this date as cover and the original artist. So how would that work?
Well, it happens all the time. Like Gochi, not Gochi. He was covered by.
Walk Up Here.
Thank you. And like it's got more views now. Cover. So in that situation, like, so you can do covers anytime, right? Like, and you get like what's called a mechanical royalty. So you pay like 9.1 cents. It's a rate determined by law. So right now it's like 9.1 cents, I believe. So every copy that's made, like you sell it on iTunes, for example. Like my band covered Psycho Killer by Talking Heads, so we sell it on iTunes. 9 cents goes to David Byrne, whoever wrote the song, and then the rest goes to our record label. We see nothing. But like, so you can do that anytime. But on YouTube, the revenues would go to, I believe, mostly the writers, like the original song. So, and some would go to you as a performer, like just based on performance rights. But yeah, most like, so long story short, if you have a massive hit to cover, like a lot of it's going to go to whoever wrote the song.
Whether or not you've got permission from the original artist?
Yeah, you don't necessarily need permission. Like in some jurisdictions you do and some you don't, but you don't here. So
there's also software that a lot of people use to try to find this. Is a middle file.
They'll take it down, yeah.
And I'm losing my voice 17, so it's doubly awkward. But I mean, the value when you have the cover song that gets the money is that you can monetize with advertising. Where a lot of the, that's where all the revenue comes from.
And then you can also get permission from the artist or the publisher, like if they can flag it and take it down. They may not, right? But if they do, you can reach out and say, hey, because I think Beaver did that like in the early days, like just covers, and he was allowed to keep on because they were blowing up. Like so, yeah. Basically, you can get like if it is taken down, you can take certain steps to contact one of the owners and get permission to get it back up.
What if someone did a cover of your cover?
That's a good question. I think it would still go to like the original, like the writers, you know, like, even though they might be doing like what's the Sound of Silence cover band? Sister. Is on it. Yeah, their version's so different. It's a different arrangement and all that stuff. But I think any version of that song will ultimately, in terms of permission, go back to Paul Simon and what's his name.
Instrumental version of that.
Good, but well, it's still copyright in the arrangement, like in the music, right? So music and lyrics, like you can't just separate them. You know what I mean? Like, if you had the lyrics to that song and had your own music, it's still permission from, you know, like you can't really separate them in that example. Yeah.
The last question I had was, see, you got a band like the Zach Brown band. 4 guys, hey, let's call it the Zach Brown band. Here's that
Right.
It all falls apart. There's an argument. How does Zach Brown continue in music? I mean, his name is his name.
Yeah, well, that's a good question because the law, there's a certain protection in your name inherently, like, so like, yeah, I don't think his bandmates could say, hey, I'm going to go start a band called the Zach Brown Band. You know,
right. But how do they protect their business that they created that's called Zach Brown?
I think a band agreement would be huge for them, right? Like, they probably would say that the band name is owned by him, but you know, they still rights to revenue from record sales and all that stuff. But yeah, and even if it's so, there's certain rights in your name that you have, like a lot of people have the same name, right? There's more than one Kurt Dahl.
Yeah.
So like, but you can get trademarks in, like, especially stage names, right? Now John's not his real name, or Donna, of course. Like, so you can get trademarks in your stage name. But yeah, in terms of like your actual, like, your birth name, there's certain rights that just automatically accrue to you. But
so if the band fell apart, they're all suing each other, you can still go and get a new band, that ground band tomorrow, or so start to take it.
that's a good question. I think, again, without something in writing is when you ask.
Yeah, without something right.
Yeah, well, that's where I hope you have something, because otherwise, because you're right, there's like, I'm not sure if that's his real name. It may not be his real name. Right? So Zach Brown Band is a certain, if I was the lawyer for the drummer,
Right.
I would say, well, the Zach Brown Band is like, I have to create that brand over like 15 odd years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So even though it sounds like his name, his first question is it his real name? And like, certain things. But secondly, like, yeah, I put forth the argument that I've got certain rights and I want to kind of, you know, T-shirt sales, blah, blah, blah. I mean, ultimately that'd be like a negotiation between.
Like you said, band agreement is before it gets to that point.
Yeah, and a lot easier, yeah.
At what point, as somebody who's been in the industry on both ends for quite some time, at what point do you suggest those of us who are lately amateur, early professional, do we go to you versus doing it ourselves?
Like in terms of a band agreement or just anything?
Anything legal at this point?
Honestly, I say just email me and ask me the question. You know, I'm not going to invoice you if you email me and call me. Like, You know, like it doesn't hurt to ask. Sometimes it's been like the smallest things that end up really saving someone down the road, find mine down the road. Like, you know, like one example is someone who wants to write a song with another person in Vancouver, and they just call me like, should I get something writing? I don't want to be the guy that shows up with like a contract. I was like, well, no, like you don't have to put the contract down before you write the song together, but just write the song and then discuss the splits, and then, you know, whatever the next day, just have something just that affirms those splits. You know, and that song ended up becoming like a big hit. So it was like, you know, a couple $100 to draft of a co-writer agreement, but the song made, you know, it made, you know, just a crazy amount beyond that, right? And it's just like, had they not called me, and the two writers, like, they aren't the best friends anymore. So it's like, which happens again. It happens when there's a big success. You know, everyone's friends when you're all eating craft dinner. But had they not just put that simple thing in writing, like who knows what, like the other writer might have claimed more than 50% or whatever, right? So it doesn't hurt to ask. I guess I've always been someone since I was a kid, just always ask way too many questions. You know, why not? Why not ask, right? And I'm pretty easy to get along with, you know, and discuss with, you know. So that's why I put all my contact info here. It's like I'm easy to get a hold of. You know what I mean? You don't have to go to Toronto or Vancouver. Like I'm right here. So yeah, I would say like if you have any questions about the biz, just shoot me. I'm happy to help.
Let's say you're a songwriter, or you're playing around, you come up with something kind of neat. Is something just handwritten on a piece of paper? Is that as powerful, not as powerful, better than nothing than, say, a formal typed up printout?
Yeah.
As long as it's signed.
Well, I mean, contracts don't have to be like typed up. You know, so they obviously existed before, you know, MacBooks. But you know, it's like depends what you write down on a sheet. You know, it's like a classic. I remember, like in law school, you remember like the mills and stuff. And like the guy's dying, got out of his tractor, and he's like, he writes it on the tractor fender. It's actually binding. You know, he puts, but depends what you put. You know, what you put there could actually not help you. But you know, for a co-writing thing, you know, it's fairly inexpensive, and like you can use that same one or two pages, let's say, agreement every time you co-write. You know? So the thing, like the interesting thing about the co-writing agreements is like just registering your co-writing splits with SOCAN like, isn't actually legally binding. And SOCAN is the first to say that. Like they say on the website, like, what you put here is not binding because they don't know if, like, what, you know, you upload, you put your own songwriting splits out, and like there's nothing signed off by the two of you, or by you, whatever. So it's just, and songwriting is so vitally important these days that I just say, you know, it's worth a couple $100 to get a co-writer agreement and just use that every time you co-write. You know what I mean? And also we've got like a SaskMusic legal program, so some of the stuff you know, get it for free. So.
So if a main songwriter decides to leave the band and band continues to go on without the main songwriter, and they don't have a contract, what is the main songwriter entitled to?
It's a good question. So, I mean, first off, you would get, that person would, you know, have rights to the songs they wrote, you know, like, but again, without something in writing, it's tough to prove. I mean, like they claim they're the main songwriter, but if I was lawyer for the other people, I'd say, well, you don't have anything in writing, so the law would assume it's equal songwriting splits, which the main songwriter would not be a fan of hearing. But I mean, again, that's why these things are so important, right? Would you have the right to keep playing the songs? Or you can keep playing them live, and so it would be like almost doing a cover live if someone else wrote the entire thing. But you keep playing live, arguably keep using the band name because that other person has nothing in writing to stop you. Of course, they can always hire a lawyer and say, this is my band name. I've got evidence from emails, et cetera. This is my band name. You know what I mean? But then you could hire a better lawyer and then dispute it based on evidence or whatever, you know. In the former, or like in the recordings that you guys might have had, again, without anything right, like, it's like the law will be on your side because there's more of you. I'm assuming it's like 4 people or whatever. There'd be three against one. It's kind of without anything in writing. That sort of be what the law would view it as, like, which is kind of what happened with Pink Floyd. I think is that because there's 3 versus Roger Waters, the court said, well, there's more Pink Floyd over here than over here. You know what I mean? So that's kind of analogous to what we're saying. You know? But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if that main songwriter has some sort of documentation that they are the main writer and you guys agree that, yeah, these are all your compositions, so that would obviously hurt your case, you know.
How much of this is valid in the view of the law if you haven't registered with ISC, especially if it's like your own name?
I see so you're saying like the band name is your own personal name?
Either way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you start out, right, as long as you're going under citizens business and you just do what you do and
yeah,
kind of evolves from there.
Register with IC, to me, like it helps a bit, but a band agreement's way more legally binding because again, registry, like, you know, when I started One Bad Son, I probably registered with ISC, I don't remember if I did, but you know, I've got bandmates and stuff, so like no one has signed anything as between the band members with the ISC registration, you know. So I mean, the ISC registration more so just adds a bit of sort of brand protection for you within the province of Saskatchewan. You know, a Canadian-wide trademark is way more valuable, costs more money, of course, but and then a band agreement's like that just like it just covers so much more, you know.
What's like the average price for a band agreement for a lawyer to write it up?
Good question. So it depends. I mean, I've seen a lot all over the map. You know, like if you go to Toronto lawyer, particularly like one firm, it's a lot more expensive. But you know, I would say it takes like between 2 to 4 hours of legal and billable time to draft. It's a fairly complex agreement. You know, there's a lot of things covered, as we kind of see today. My hourly rate is $275. That gives you an idea. So again, with the legal program, it really helps because you can get up to 2 hours of pro bono legal advice and put that towards like a band agreement. You know, so it's going to take 4 hours of tools are free. You know what I mean? But yeah, you know, if you're in Vancouver or Toronto, things are, you know, legal fees are a lot more expensive. You have to pay for their fancy offices, which we have an advantage on that because things are a bit more affordable here. But yeah, and honestly, from what I've seen, like it's a chunk of change for sure. But from what I've seen from my experience, it's worth it. And if you take your career seriously, it's like it's worth the investment. You know. Any more questions? Megan.
It's kind of a weird one, but I'll go with it. I treated my grandma like that a few months ago, and it was pretty dope. She's this really like cute, heartwarming grandma stuff. And then long story short, took a bunch of it and put it into a song. And I asked her the other day, I'm like, hey, grandma, you want to do my album? And she's like, oh yeah, you can. But like, you probably get asked this all the time, but should I have a contract with you?
That's awesome. I don't think so. I mean, you know, like it's your grandma. Like,
yeah. Really, no,
she's tuning in right now. She's just like, what the?
She's like, how am I supposed to get you into this? I'm like, I'll bring you like a disciplined grandma. She'll hear it, but.
Well, but so let's go. Let's pretend it's not your grandma. Like, you know, so you interviewed her, sort of like, basically her sort of story is in song form, right? Is that the?
It's like, I have this one song, that's a full song that I wrote, but underneath it is a trumpet drone. So another track would be, separate track would be the building of the drone. So my grandma, it's like trumpet and then grandma did it, and then trumpet.
Oh, like her vocal, like
her voice.
or like her voice. Yeah, gotcha. Sorry, misunderstood. I think it's like, if it was someone else, then I would say, you know, it might be worth it. Like for an example would be like Vincent Price, like the old.
On the Thriller thing?
Yeah. Thriller is also on like Alice Cooper and stuff. Like he's a legend, and they had to 100% get permission from him. Like otherwise, well, it wouldn't have worked. But like they could have found maybe clips of him and put it on the recording that he actually was in the studios. Of course, they had to get permission. But yeah, people definitely have rights in their voice and their performance. You know, or like Tom Waits, Doritos approached him to write a song for them, and he's like, "F no, because I'm Tom Waits," which I love. I was like, love that guy. And but so they just hired a Tom Waits impersonator to totally sound like him. And it was like out a month later, he heard on TV. He was like, "What the hell?" So he sued them like hard and then won. So like, and that wasn't his voice. That's just someone that sounded like him, right? So, but anyways, so there is rights in someone's voice and then that voice. But so if it was Tom Waits, I'd say get some in writing. But like Instagrammers, I think it's probably cool. That's a good. I like that. It's a good sort of legal quiz. You know, like what? Yeah, what right? What right should it be? You know.
That reminds me of something. So like at home, I found this book that my grandpa had written in. And it's probably 30 pages, and every page is different lyrics to a different song. And I don't know if he wrote them, and nobody knows where exactly they came from. It might just be a transcription of old songs from that time, but I can't find anything about them. But let's say I was thinking to write my own music and I put the lyrics to that.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah.
Let's say that, like in some weird scenario, that blew up, and then some company had the rights to those old time songs. They heard that. What would happen in that case? And
right. So
the music's different. It would be different, right?
Yeah. So arguably, you'd have rights in the music for sure. So in that situation, it would be like you would still say, "Hey, the music's mine." So who owns the lyrics? We don't know.
No, they're just handwritten in an old notebook.
Yeah. So without my lawyer hat on, I'd say just go for it and chance it. You know, with I mean, you're talking about strictly law. Like whoever owns those lyrics would always own those lyrics. I mean, the life of the copyright might expire if it was going to public domain. If it was like really old, you know. But yeah, I mean, release it and see what happens.
I'm curious, how would the law say that if, say, he is a musician that did the music pass up to it and found the lyrics? Would the law just assume a 50-50?
I think so, yeah. That's kind of like, in that situation, I think it'd be like 50-50, you know, music and lyrics. Which is why bands are kind of different, because it's like, I mean, a lot of people still consider music and lyrics 50-50, right? Like in hip hop and pop, if you hire a producer a lot of times and you sing, but they like provide all the music, usually it's 50-50 splits on the song, right? But in bands, it's a bit different. Like, again, to go with Chili Peppers, it's not like he just gets 50% and the other 3 split, the other 50 people, you know, people. So, but I mean, the argument is it was more than just music and lyrics. Like, it's not just chords and lyrics, it's like something else, right? Mike, you had a question?
Oh, I just remember of this question. There's a songwriter, Mark Cosmo, I really like. It's just really sad band. And
I like it.
And for some reason, he has the big core. I think where either people hate him or he has band. And so in the last couple of records, he's just started reading band mail. Like he plays with a bridge, where he'll play a song, good goes wherever, and then oh hey Mark, he'll read someone's like very heartfelt letter that they sent him. But he's made all those people, he's even them all co-writing credits.
He did?
Yeah. So it's really, I mean, it's just a strange scenario where he's giving royalties, he's also mocking.
Because they're kind of like funny, like
well, they're just like so.
Gotcha.
He's like a weird, crusty man with these very sentimental records, like Rose Across the Sea, it changed my life.
he just said,
I want to check this guy out. I like that. That's cool. Yeah, that's interesting. The fact that he gave him songwriting.
it's just an interesting side to
That's really cool. So he's not just like a curmudgeon. He's got a bit of a. Or maybe his lawyers think you better do this. That's really cool. Any other questions, you guys? Yeah.
I just have a quick one. I did a little bit of reading before I came here, and I came across the situation of cheap drinks and everything. Was that a case where you familiar with one?
Well, I saw some headlines. I think
the drummer and the singer got in a big fight.
Right. It's like
He came to the show the next month or something, and there was another drummer there, and they told him to beat it.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, so the agreement he has now, would you say that's something where they had to be creative to find a solution, or is that just a standard thing? You're out, here's the standard old way we handle this?
Well, so did there was just settlement? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of these things are settled out in court.
Yeah.
So I bet you.
They went to court and dragged out for a while, so I'm wondering, well, wouldn't it just be the standard thing to handle something like that? Like, why does it get, I guess, maybe because it's so much money, is that why it gets even to court?
Well, so there's nothing in writing. There was no band agreement, right? It must not have been.
I don't think so, no.
Which is crazy for the band like that, because the two guys with Ron Zander and what's the
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Like those are kind of so was it Bunny Carlos that?
Yeah.
Like he's the guy.
Well, I believe it's everything else.
Yeah.
Oh no.
But Buddy Carlos says that
That is
still
the
is on
worst.
the board of directors or whatever.
Right, yeah.
It's a paycheck and makes decisions, but they don't want him on stage.
That's crazy. I love Bunny Carlos.
Yeah.
One of the best things.
But I guess it got complicated and dragged way out where you think that would be, just follow the standard procedure.
Right. So yeah. So there must be. Yeah, they're obviously incorporated because it's a board of directors, all that stuff. And yeah, they make really good money, I'm sure. So it must be a corporate structure.
Yeah. Because his side of it was that they just never stopped checks and
so then they must have
they're not stupid. Everybody would know how it would turn out in the end. So why did they do go to court?
Well, the amount of money, I would say, and egos. Sometimes the amount of money just it's rock and roll, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's music, I should say, not just rock and roll.
There's a lot of things, of course.
Yeah. But no, it's so I guess that's a good point you bring up. Is not you can't articulate every single or can't predict every single possible dispute in a shareholder agreement or a band agreement, right? So what it probably says is, maybe there's some sort of majority required to let someone go, but maybe they just didn't have that clause in there because the four guys have been in it since like 70s. So having like a 3/4 majority to kick someone out, they didn't want that in there because they all want to be sort of have equal rights. So at the end of the day, and sometimes maybe there is stuff, and maybe like there's parts of the agreement that are up for interpretation. So it's like one lawyer interprets it one way, the other is the other way. But that's unfortunate. I mean, it's sweet that the guy wants his son to play, but like it's the same with Van Halen, right? They kick out Michael Anthony and plays with his son. It's just like these spoiled kids. I've always got a soft spot for the original members because they've been doing it for they weren't born millionaires like the kids, But that's a whole aside. That's a good question. Any other questions, you guys? Okay, well, thank you all for coming and asking all those great questions. And I will, like I said, I'll follow up with an email just so you guys have. I'll send you just a couple just links that might be helpful to sort of follow up with your reading if you're so inclined. But otherwise, thank you. Thanks for coming.